Miss Mr. Olson,
Here.
Mr. Walker, Mr. Erskines,
Here.
Mr. Restigar.
Here.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
None by me.
It's startling. All right, seeing none, moving forward. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from February 27th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to the monthly activity and financial report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I want to just look back in history 3 years ago, because I think it's significant, and I hope that we continue on where we're going. Friday the 13th, March 13th, 2020, 11 a.m., the governor shut the state down. We were just coming off the biggest first quarter the center has ever had, and the auditorium district for room tax revenues up to that date. We canceled St. Patrick's Day party that night, 600 plus people. We had to call and cancel that. And midweek, we had the NCAA or the Big Sky Conference was here. They stopped literally mid-game, sent everybody away. And we had a convention in-house that did the same thing. We had a lot of attendees from Oregon and Washington. And those governors actually shut their states down on Thursday. So literally mid-morning, mid-event, they canceled. So I'm going to start off today by recognizing the fact that Boise Center is coming up, and you'll hear this throughout the presentation today. We're coming off record first quarter. We're $1 million up from last year, predominantly because of December and part of January this year versus last year because of COVID in December of 21. So I'm hopeful that the remainder of this year continues on the success level we're at now and without any interruption as we had in 2020. So, but again, I'm really proud of the team and the fact that here we are 3 years later and literally more successful than ever. There we go. Sorry. So the recruitment process for my position is ongoing. We'll have, we had some communication with Angela earlier today, weaving Stacy, Funk and I, and we'll have, we're going to start some interviews next week. Just working on scheduling. Just a reminder, the Boise Chamber Leadership Conference, April 23 through 25. On that note, Bill announced his retirement last week at the end of this year as well. This is a great one. Society for Range Management was in largest convention post-COVID at 1,200 people. And they generated a couple thousand room nights. I mean, it was a great event, and it was so fun to have that many people back in the building for several days. And they were just wonderful group to be here. Great people. So again, who are they? Society for Range Management, a lot of agriculture, Forest Service, Secretary of the Interior, I think was here as a guest speaker. So yeah. The interesting is that there was some public-private conversations going on too, right, about private land, public land, public use of private land. So yeah, there's some pretty interesting topics actually. First $1 million February in center history. Again, can't tell you again how proud of the team I am and how nice it is to be. We're back. We're still, short about 20 people from our goal of 240, but we don't have a cap on our serviceability. So we can do meals for 1,000, 11, 1,200 again. It's the first time in 2 years, the last 2 weeks at our BEO meetings, that the food management team sits there and it's like, do you need any help? It's like, no, we got it. This time last year, we were doing all hands on deck practically at least 1, if not 2 days a week, and on weekends. We were that short. So I'm really excited the fact that again, for the first time in the center's history, we hit over $1 million. The last closest was about 840,000. So, and going on to the last bullet, and we've talked about this several times in conversations and in our meetings, that February is a great example of fitting conventions with local events and the resulting success of space management. You hear us talk about that all the time, but balancing the conventions, the local events, the conventions certainly have the impact on the positive economic impact in the valley, whereas a lot of the local events generate the highest revenue for us. Again, I really want to recognize the sales and the event team and Cody. We get together the first Monday of the month and we go through 18 months future. So we have conversation about what's contracted, what's pending, what's definite, and then who wants to come in, who wants space and how and when. Next week is a great example of the team. There's not a lot of convention traffic or even local events going on next week. Galas and that sort of thing because of spring break. Well, we've got the Flower and Garden Show and Tree Fort on top of each other. One in east, and the Tree Fort's in east, and the Flower and Garden Show's in west. So again, that's how we take a look at maybe not high revenue pieces of business necessarily, but how our facility can generate activity downtown, be a great neighbor, great partner with other events, and contribute to the activity downtown. So again, February is a great example of that. What we're doing this month is a great example of that. And that's how we're managing looking forward. So that, again, I foresee that if the rest of the year continues the way we're doing right now, it's not unreasonable. And Cody and I have a side bet, but it's not unreasonable to think we can do 10 million this year. So, I mean, it's busy, and the team is doing an outstanding job of managing how we're doing it to keep everybody happy. Again, here's the Society of Range Manager. You can see some of the hats, Mike. Tells you the mix of the folks. Again, it was a great conference. And again, this is how we use our space, right? The ballrooms we use for exhibiting. We've got the meeting rooms, and then we've got room to feed them as well. So again, just a great experience. The numbers already spoke to them a little bit. The fixed fees obviously just continue month by month. The lease payments as well, they're fixed. 1.7 million is our debt service. The cash continues to be strong, and the rest of again the capital needs, just to highlight those again. It's that permanent 10 million that I have in there for capital needs over the next 3 years of projects. Cody spoke to it last month about what we're trying to do in East this year. So strong financial picture. The local events, here we are, we're done with our first quarter. So, we're 3 months into it, but our numbers are already strong, and I would not be surprised, given the management of space, that the number of events will go up a bit. But we've already got several months that don't have any dark days in them. So fall used to be, slow, and we do some capital projects this time of year, or January, February. That's not the case anymore. So we're back down to July and August. In fact, really July is the month that we have to look at for a lot of our capital projects, and then the last half of December. So again, we're tracking very, very well. The hostel stats, the occupancy and ADR. Occupancy still strong. Fifth month of decline, however, on demand. So, pardon me, we see that slowing down, and I think a lot of it has to do with, again, timing of when the rest of the country was really opening. It's the residual effect of the Delta variant. So if you remember December, the fall of 2021, November, December. We had 6 events in December of 2021, and we had like 27 events this year in December. So we saw that continuing into January, February. So I think that's why the decline in demand but overall occupancy and demand still shows up over 2019. So a lot said and maybe tough to follow, but the good news is average rates continue to be up and our room tax revenues continue to break records. Here's the demand revenue slide. So again, we're pardon me, starting off the year strong. Hopefully it's going to continue. Again, I think that another $10 million year in room tax revenues is reasonable. But I think it could be a little bit of a push if rates come down and demand continues to slack a little bit year on year. From a convention side, 24 is already filling up. We're trying to take a look and again, fill in where it makes sense. And I would anticipate 25, it's already coming on strong. So with Boise being on the map of these event planners, I see us just managing conventions a little better and as we go forward. But until, again, we talk about this all the time, until the hotels are able to free up more rooms for some of the bigger blocks, we're sort of we are where we are, I think, for several years foreseeable future. But some Polka Dot Powerhouse, they confirm they're coming in 24 700 room nights, 100,000 forecasted revenue, 380,000 economic impact. The Helicopters Association International, I actually signed that contract. They'd like to come annually 400 room nights, 100,000 in revenue, 339 in economic impact.
What is Polka Dot Powerhouse?
I'm sorry.
What's Polka Dot Powerhouse?
I believe it's a dance group, right? Or a polka convention.
Oh, it's actually, excuse me, Madam Chairman, it's a women's networking / sorority. Business women's networking / it's kind of like a multi-level, but think of it for networking mostly for women with a positive spin.
So no music.
No music.
We were actually talking about one, so I got confused. So I'm sorry about that, but and in fact, speaking of groups like, well, a little different, but starting tomorrow night, we'll have 1,500 women here for, pardon me, for a convention. They're in Friday night and Saturday, and so they'll be here all day Saturday as well. Tomorrow night's going to be interesting downtown because we've got Time Out for Women for 1,500. We've got a hockey game with 5,000. We've got Butte and Boise for about 350. And then you have just all kinds of other parties and whatnot going on downtown. So parking is going to be interesting. I've already talked, I've already communicated with CCDC and about it, but downtown Boise is going to be happening tomorrow night. So be very crowded. Get your dinner reservations early. If you don't already have, you're out of luck. Some confirmed conventions again. We talk about this every month. The mid-sized conventions are absolutely going to be where our niche is for the foreseeable future. The opportunity to get the really big ones. We're getting one or two, but it's just not going to be there for long. And this is a surprise to Anne Marie. I was trying to find a Jib Jab video. And, we talked about this at our staff or our BEO meeting on Wednesday. And, the finance team does an outstanding job of making sure that we make the right financial decisions. And one of the things that Anne Marie and I were celebrating, and I couldn't find a better one. So I appreciate Anna and Stephanie and Mary Michael sliding this in without Anne Marie knowing it. But I really wanted to recognize Anne Marie and her team, and particularly the fact that we hit our first $1 million February. And the fact that she helps us. I was trying to find a video or the song that, we're in the money, and put that up there. So this is recognition for Anne Marie and her team and the success that they help bring to the table. And again, the team watches our money for us. And so while we can generate it on the front end, we still have to do the right thing on the back end. And her and her team do a great job with that. So I thought it was great recognition for her team as well as first $1 million. So. Now I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, So as Pat said, we had another $1 million month in revenues. Our district cash increased 200,000 this month and last month. With our tax revenues are down from where they were running because of the lower demand. And so we're not getting, not having $1 million months, putting $500,000 a month into cash, but we're still putting money into cash. The operating transfers for the center remains under budget by 823,000. When the capital transfers are over budget due to timing, we always will come in under budget on the capital transfers. We have, I guess maybe just explain that process a little bit. We have a meeting once a quarter, the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, just looking at all of our capital projects, making sure we're focusing on the high priority ones and that we're allocating the money in the best places possible. We then go to a monthly meeting the last quarter or the last 3 months of the year just to make sure we're hitting our targets before the end of the year. The audit report's 90% finished and we will have that available at the April meeting. So as you can see here, the Boise Center, it will focus on the green lines. We're 872,000 better than budget. The district's 297,000 better than budget. Aquatics remains under budget, and that is because of the completion date of the aquatics. It was budgeted to be completed sooner, which is when the revenues would increase. And so that'll continue probably to run under budget for the rest of the year. And then on a combined basis, we're 1.1 million over budget. Or better than budget is probably a better way to say that. So here's the tax revenues. Right now we're at 1.8, budget's 1.7. So we're doing stronger than budget this year. This is a quarter, I put it the slide in, I thought for the transfers for the first quarter, so you could compare it to the same quarter 2022 to 23. So the left side is 228, the right side's 228 of 23. And so you can see, obviously, lease payments are pretty stable. The operating is up slightly, and that's because we started the beginning of the year with slightly lower cash balance, and then our inventory to accommodate the higher level of sales has increased about 30,000. And so that's what we've used, that additional increase of cash. And then we were 70,000 in capital projects last year, and we're at 180,000 currently. A couple of the big projects that we have going on, Wi-Fi upgrade, that was a project that was budgeted in 2022. If we do not carry over the budgets, so if you don't use it, it goes to zero and we rebudget it. So we moved 67,000 was budgeted last year, budgeted again this year. And then we have AV projectors and lenses that for another 55,000. I put this slide together just because you hear us talk month after month, and sometimes it's nice to have a full recap of what has gone on. So if you look in this slide, the reds are our lowest 10 months. The greens are our highest 10 months. So as you can see, we have had 6 highest records in 2022, and February is one of the highest as well. So it's in the top 10. But if you also look up and down, December of 23 was a record for December. January was a record for January. February is a record for February. And you can see that even in 2022, if you look at the greens, those are almost every month in 22 was a record. So And then the bottom slide just showing the losses. And so it says losses are declining and I'm not, maybe I should say are improving. So you can see 21, we were at a loss of 2.3 for the first quarter. In 2022, we were at 1.8 and this quarter we're at 1.6. The square foot utilization, you can see that for February, we were pretty high compared to historical. One of the events that Pat talked about was the Society for Range Management, and they used almost 300,000 square feet. We had the IETA conference that used 240,000 square feet. And then we had the BPA conference, which was another 103,000 square feet. So between those were almost a little over 600,000 square feet that resulted in that high blue line for February.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I see a couple of maybe questions on a couple of folks' faces. Again, that's calculated. They're using east and west. Society of Range Management use both buildings. So you have, pardon me, a total of about 80,000 square feet net usable, right? That's being used each day by particular groups. So you take that total square footage times how many days they're in. So that's where you get the calculation of, a couple 300,000 square feet. Because if you're sitting there going, we only have a 25,000 square foot ballroom, how does this work? That's how it's calculated. So it's total square foot utilization times the number of days that they're in. And again, with those big events, Idaho Education Technology Association uses both buildings. And I think they're the highest bandwidth group of the year, no? Okay.
Tree Fort next week.
Oh, okay. But as a general convention or group, IETA ranks up there.
Probably.
So again, reinforcing also the capital projects that you talked about. So without your support, we couldn't even do those big events, IETA or things like Tree Fort, because the amount of money that we invest in infrastructure and we charge for it. So, I mean, we get an ROI, so it's not like we give it away, but without that investment, we couldn't get it in the first place. So that's how we utilize the funds to make sure that we get the future business. Sorry.
No, thank you. Aquatics made their payment one more time. They're a great tenant. We do have a pending request for funds from Aquatics for February. I don't know exactly how much that is going to be. Still waiting for Ryan to get that information to me. And then we also have oh, sorry, I got those backwards. That was the pending request for the timing of construction draws. No, sorry. That's just next slide. Oh, did backwards. I'm gonna go to the end. This is one of the action items on the bottom part, so we'll come back to this one. That's my presentation. Any questions?
You can, if you don't mind going back to the previous slide, just again, to
Okay.
tee this up. As Anne Marie already explained, that we don't roll funds from one year to the other automatically. So when the year ends, the 200 and pardon me, 88,000 was budgeted and receipt, or it was in the budget last year. So this is not an ask for more money. It's simply money that was not used in 2022, didn't budget it in 2023. We didn't include that. And Ryan wasn't aware that that's how we operate. And I'm not sure that we did a good job of making that clear, but regardless of that, that's where the action item is on the agenda, and why, again, not asking for more money. That is absolutely not the case. It's funds that simply they were allocated last year and not spent. So we just need to reallocate them this year.
Chair, question. So is that number then included in the better than budget number from last year? In other words, what was approved last year, not used?
Yeah, in the transfers. Yep,
Is then
we transferred
reflected in there.
200. And at the time when we do the budget, we don't obviously know whether it's gonna all be used or not at the end of the year. And So this is just the catch up for when the budget was done versus what happened at the end of the year.
So technically, the better than budget number will then be just offset by whatever gets reapproved.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But I want to clarify also that the transfers, the capital transfers are separate from the district transfer for this project. So the money that we didn't spend operationally in our operations capital plan
I gotcha.
is different than the transfer of these funds. So
And the better than budget number was that.
a better than
I
budget
gotcha.
is still better than budget.
Yeah.
The total district transfers, however, for the aquatic center are accounted for separately.
Gotcha.
So
Thank you for clarifying.
Any questions?
Any questions for Pat or Anne Marie?
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. What's our current forecasted end of year cash? And the other thing, is how much? Now, that's
We had budgeted to be at about 17 million. Our cash balances are higher right now because our transfers are lower. So we still are looking and going, thinking that we.
So we're now at 20 million. Today.
Yes. In the investment, but it's a timing, right? We still have money to come out for transfers, for capital and operating. If we have like almost $8 million due still to come out for remaining transfers.
So that investment balance will be, give or take, 17 million at the end of the year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll be dipping below the 20 threshold.
Pardon?
We'll be dipping below that 20 million threshold. Likely.
If the center does is, yeah, I mean, given the budget, we're budgeting it to be at 17 million. But obviously, we're performing better than budget on the center side and on the district side.
So it could be.
yeah, I mean, if everything stays status quo from here forward, problem is we don't have that kind of a crystal ball. So, but we're trending in a very positive direction.
Well, Madam Chair, my point is, this is a huge year.
Yes, sir.
Can't get any better than this.
Well, let's hope.
So wouldn't you expect us to build cash?
It depends on what your money, how you're using your funds. So if we have a lot of capital projects and we've got money going to aquatics, which is almost 2.6 million. So if you didn't have money going to the aquatics, yes, we would be building cash. But with funding the aquatics, probably won't this year.
Got it.
Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ryan, not Ryan. ICA, Nick, and I'm sorry, I forgot. You do the investments, you do the fundraising, right? Yeah.
Madam Chair, board members, once again, thanks for having us. Ryan apologized for not being able to be here today. Tax season is upon us and he is swamped here, but it looks like the next meeting is the 19th, which should be just after tax season. So I believe he'll be at this next at the next meeting we have here. Couple quick updates, and we have some timeline updates, construction progress. The pool installation is coming in. The pool deck is completely poured. The liner has been put on the competition pool, the bigger pool, and the filtration system is being installed on site. If you go up there this week, The doors and the windows are going in on the north end and the east end of the pool, and all the lines on the bottom of the pool, the competition pool, are being put in as we speak. This morning, they were finishing up the long course lines, and then they'll start doing the cross lines this week as well. The support facilities are nearly complete. Toilet sinks are going into the locker rooms. Lockers are already in. Those men's and women's locker rooms will be finished next week. Bathrooms for the spectators will be finished next week. Sinks and toilets going into those. Showers are in. The HVAC venting has been installed. They are installing the inside portion of that now as well, and it'll still be about a week or two before those are ready to sort of kick on and move. But we weren't expecting those to be on site until last week, so we're about 2 weeks ahead of schedule on those ones. The sidewalk to the main entrance, and you can see that here when we come up. So these slides, this is the upper left-hand side there is from the northeast end of the pool, and that is a competition pool. And so on the bottom of that pool, all those lines have been painted in as of this morning. On the bottom right-hand side, that is the southeast end of the pool. So that is the area in between the two pools, looking out over the, all those doorways are getting put in today, and the windows getting put in today. So by the end of next week, that will be sealed up and no longer able to just walk in.
Nick, a question. Tim and I had the opportunity to go out there last week and take a look at it, and it's pretty fascinating to see how much progress has been made since I was out there last. And we had a great walk, and Tim asked some questions of me that I have no answer to on a couple of the roof issues, but so I'll let him do that. But it was interesting watching him put the liner down. That's what they were doing when we were out there. So how does that work? How does a liner? I mean, is it? I guess basically glued to the bottom of. I mean,
So the edges of the pool, the outside of the bottom of the pool is screwed into the concrete, and then the liner overlaps, and so one flap of liner gets glued and heated to another flap where the overlaps, and then they cut out all the inlets that are in the bottom. So you can't see them in this picture, but if you go up there. Probably Monday, all 72 inlets will be cut out so that the water comes up. And then there's another piece of liner that is a smaller strip that is more pliable. And that goes over the bottom, like the corners. It covers sort of the outside, covers the stainless steel and covers all the screws. And that gets sealed on the same way with it's a glue, and it's a guy in there who is just sort of melding it together. And he spends about 9 to 10 hours a day, just on his hands and knees with a little glue thing, and does it all like that. He'll do it in this pool, and then next week they'll start doing it in the smaller pool as well. But you can see the main entrance there, and the concrete has been poured on that side, and that south end of the building, the south end of the property is prepped for asphalt and pavement for the parking and the access road for the fire department and the trucks and buses. That lower right-hand corner is from the top of the support area overlooking both pools. So you can see the liner has not yet been put into that small pool, but it is going into that big pool, and all of that HVAC ductwork has been closed off on the east end of the building as well. So that was new this week as well. That east end should be completely closed off by tomorrow.
It's amazing how bright it is inside without lights.
Yeah, and so none of the lights are on, and still a lot of sunlight coming into the facility, and we'll get it even better when those doors are actual glass doors and not just the sort of whatever they're using to seal it off right now. One piece of programming information that we had sort of mentioned last week or last meeting, and we officially received word last week, is sectionals, senior sectional swim meet in 2025, March 13th through 16th. We will be hosting here in Boise. We just came back from that meet in Federal Way, Washington, Monday morning. I got back, and that's typically 600 to 700 kids coming in swimming. So we'll be hosting that one in addition to the other two this summer. And most likely one more next summer, since we were the
That's
only people
probably-
who put a bid on it.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
That's probably 1,400 people.
Yeah, 12 to 14, absolutely. These are, Ryan's daughter was actually the youngest person at this meet this past weekend, and she just turned 13 in January. So these are typically 13 to as old as, there was somebody there who was 24, but typically they travel as teams, and so you get chaperones. They have to have a certain number of chaperones for every team, and then coaches. These things.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Since you put up the bid, when you go out to bid, what are the typical factors that get you to win versus?
It's not as complicated as it sounds. You're on a call with a bunch of other coaches and what are called local swim committees. And everybody has an opportunity to bid on these meets. And typically we see in the spring, it would be either us, King County Aquatic Center in Federal Way, just outside of Seattle. And maybe someplace in Phoenix, but typically a lot of other places don't have the capacity of hosting. You know, you need seating for 600 to 700 parents as well. So you don't see a lot of places that have that capacity. So typically it's us. In the summertime, you get some of those California pools that will open themselves up to this, but not often. It's, you know, you just sort of say, hey, listen, we want to host it. This is how many hotel rooms we have, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau has done a great job of putting together sort of linking websites and bids for us to sort of highlight how many hotel rooms we have, what the distance is to the facility from those hotel rooms. Everybody likes to be within a,
Are
4 to
those the
5
main
mile.
questions then?
Yeah,
Between you, King
it's-
County and the one in Arizona, that's what
yeah, pretty much.
differentiates?
That's what differentiates it. And typically we've seen in the past couple of years is King County has been hesitant to do a lot because they still do have a bunch of restrictions and a bunch of other things, but we expect to have a meet of this size every year, if not multiples.
So you have two this year.
We have 2 this summer, July 12th through the 16th and August 1st through the 4th, 5th. And then
Next year.
next year, we had put in a bid for the age group zones meet again, which would be August 8th through the 12th, and we were the only bid. So we'll find out in about a month if we were awarded that. We don't see why we wouldn't be. And then this is May or March of 2025 for this as well.
So are there still meets that are out there?
Yes,
And
they'll
available
open
to
up
bid at?
sort of this summer, they'll open up stuff for summer of 2025. They usually typically do it a year and a half to 2 years out.
So is 2024 kind of looking just like that one in August time?
We'll look at that one and then we will host our own sort of separate meet where we invite teams from out of state to come up, you know, January, February-ish. You know, we had originally thought June, and then the Convention and Visitors Bureau sort of told us that June is a huge hotel month because of Far West soccer, and that drives up hotel rooms and also limits the amount of people we could bring in. So we'll look at changing those dates and getting it to a time where we can get those hotels booked more easily. And then last programming note here, we will open swim lesson registrations on Monday. This coming Monday, we will open swim lesson registrations. It will link straight from the GBAC swim website, which is the website that has been out there since we started here. So if you know anybody who is interested in signing their kids up for swim lessons, feel free to reach out to us and we'll have that all up and running Monday. And
What are your ages?
5 months through adult lessons.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to turn it over to Josh Hoisington here. Josh is a member of our foundation board and is heading up our fundraising efforts here. So he will have a couple of statements here and we'll move.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As you pointed out, I am not Ryan. definitely better looking, not sure is it entertaining, so we'll see if I can hold up my part of the bargain. As Nick mentioned, I sit on the foundation board, and I wanted to take this time and this opportunity to talk a little bit more about fundraising and where we're at, where we've been, and more importantly, where we plan to go. It's been a little bit of a struggle, as we've talked about in the past with the fundraising. So in the last month or since the beginning of the year, our board has come together to create a strategic plan. And that strategic plan is to target specific goals on how much funds we want to raise and when we want to raise them. And then more importantly, how we're going to do that. So I listed some of those goals there. In the next 12 months, we are planning on raising an additional $1 million above and beyond what we've done so far. We would like to raise a good chunk of that, 300,000 in the first 3 months. We did one event last week, I believe, raised 50 grand in one of these events. So it was a promising start. We need to make sure that we continue them going forward. 300K in 6 to 9 months. We're looking at soft opening. The facility opens here in April. Prior to us getting these big events kicked off, we want to have a grand opening where we invite partners that have already been involved, and we are looking to expand our reach to those people that they know. And so we plan on hopefully having that soft opening here somewhere prior to those 2 bigger events, and then followed up in the next 9 to 12 months, a much larger, type fundraising similar. I don't want to say like the Michael Phelps event, but definitely looking at a big annual type fundraiser where we're bringing in folks and we're getting the community involved.
He did say he would come back.
Say what?
He did say
He
he would
said he
come
was
back.
gonna take a swim in that pool, so we're gonna open it up and I'm gonna let Ryan make that phone call, or Nick. They got the private backroom with them. I was excluded, so that 50 grand, I wanna talk a little bit about what we're trying to do now immediately to raise funds. And that's open houses. I'm glad that Pat and Tia made their way out to the facility. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the folks that have been involved from the early stages to the facility to see this in person. It is one thing to see it in pictures. It is another thing to see it in person. It is much bigger and eye-popping, like Pat's like, there's things you see there in person that you just can't get from either talking to me or Ryan. So we invited, key individuals, donors to see that. They wrote a check at that meeting. But the key item that we're asking is that they bring others like themselves, like-minded individuals that are keen on saving people's lives, especially Idahoans that may not know how to swim. So we're gearing that up. We're formalizing a plan, putting all of the contacts that we've already worked with in terms of donations and investors, and then putting a schedule together to get them to the facility on every Monday and Wednesday going forward till they open, to generate that activity, to get people talking, and to ask for donations to meet what those goals are. We haven't quite organize the soft opening and the grand opening, but we are going to take a blueprint from the Michael Phelps events. That's the type of money we're hoping to raise it. That was a very successful event. So, we're pretty confident we can replicate that going forward to help garner some future dollars for us. And then as it relates to past that 12 months, the foundation, I put the mission statement there. We're trying to provide programming, and we're going to be doing this not in 2023 and just 2024. We want to do this ongoing. So there's going to be an annual fundraising strategy where we're raising funds to make sure that this aquatic center is successful, and more importantly, it's putting kids in the water and saving lives. So that's on the foundation side, what we're doing from a fundraising standpoint. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the finances, where we're at today, tie into what Anne-Marie was talking about earlier. So 18.5 fund number, did save some funds there, 350,000. So, just over 18 million total budget. We spent 13.8. So we still have 4.3 left to go. You can see the investors, receivables, and then, the generous partnership with the Greater Boise Auditorium District funds there as well. putting us at an unused balance. So we are on pace. But we do need that fundraising to come through. We would like to finish that with a much larger number there than currently shows.
Are you telling people it's safer to invest in you than keep their money in a bank?
That is a really good strategy. I may talk to you later about what and how we should position investing in pools versus banks.
So you're basically short 63,
No, if we,
you're over 63?
Yep, so, given where we're at now, there are operational costs, unknown things that do come up, rent, pool noodles for swim lessons, things like that, but
And you have that coming in, the 1.5 on your end.
the ICA funds and receivables are already here. The 288,000 is the 2022 tranche that Emery was talking about, that we didn't use. And a quick note on that, what we were doing is we were using other funds first. Our understanding and what we're trying to do with the auditorium district's money is be conscious. We want to try to not use it. So we used the receivables, ICA, ICCU, and we left that last part off, not understanding fully that those don't roll into the next year.
And your operating revenues, with like lessons and things like that.
Yes.
That's kind of, like you said, it's a little uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, well, we don't know what they are today. The one thing I'll say from our talking with, or going out and fundraising, people loved talking about programming, giving money for programs. Capital campaigns were a little bit more difficult. So what we're talking about in one of our strategic goals long-term is getting grants. How do we get grants to have people continuously give money going forward to save lives? That's what I think our goal is going to be going forward, and that's to support what the programming is. The school district and several private schools we're actively talking to making sure that they are signing up to either run swim meets or run programming as well. So while we don't have the programming there to generate those dollars, we're fairly optimistic that the financials Ryan had created will meet the projections. I think we'll fill the pool quick. I know I'm a little bit more optimistic than Nick over here, but I think we'll hit the ground running. That a lot of those programming dollars will start coming in, and that will start generating cash for the auditorium district.
Questions? Comments? I know it sounds like you maybe had some questions about after visiting.
Yeah. So you said fundraising was tough, it's been tough, and then you specified, people don't like, funders don't like the capital expense side so much, but they want to fund programming. Is it a numbers game at this point? Are you getting enough in the top of your funnel?
I think that's what our conversations have been, is how have we been approaching the fundraising? I think a lot of it has been, I'm a fisherman, it's been fly fishing. It's been using a very specific type of fly to catch a very specific type of species. We need to be casting larger nets that bring in more fish in larger quantities. And so that's what our goal is to take the people that we've had success with now and to multiply those. So we're casting bigger nets than focusing in on the bigger donors, the bigger capital campaigns. We aren't giving up on those. I think a famous basketball player once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So we aren't giving up on some of the bigger corporations and the folks that may not have been interested in the capital campaigns. We are going back to their doors and we are talking to them about programming and other options.
So is it a matter of creating a program on paper and then
Yes.
fundraising with that in hand?
Yes, very much.
And hopefully also, once they see the building finished, visit, then they get a little more excited about it. It's hard to get excited about a piece of paper.
It is hard. And also, experiences pay big dividends. If some of these donors get their kids into the facility, they learn how to swim. Little Johnny Sue is going to go tell grandpa, this was the greatest experience of my life. I was at a swim meet for sectionals competing against people across the western half of the United States. What are we doing to be involved? Creating those types of experiences will help create donors and more communication, cast that net, feel that that funnel at the top. But you hit the head on it. That's what we need to do, and that's what our goal is. Get people in and let's make sure that we're getting bigger funnel.
Well, as you go down that path, let me and us know how we can help
Absolutely.
increase that.
Well, actually, I appreciate it. That'd be one thing, if we could get the board out to the facility, with Ryan, hear what our fundraising ideas are, see the facility, bring some other folks out. So any other stakeholders that would be interested in seeing it, please let us know. We'll schedule it. We'll be there.
I'd be open to help look at the strategy anytime and give you guys feedback.
Absolutely. We will be in touch. Thank you.
How long does one of these liners last? What's the lifetime of a liner?
25 years. But we went to, they initially started putting these Mirtha pools up in outdoor pools in California in the early 90s. We visited Mission Viejo and the Dennis, it's in Morgan Hill, California, but a couple of these California places and asked them, how is your pool held up? And we went in 2021, 2022, which put it at about 30 years. And you're like, we've had no issues. If you maintain it and you keep it up, it lasts. The places that had issues were places that didn't maintain the facility.
So I guess that brings up a question. Do you have a maintenance person gonna be on
We'll
staff
have maintenance on staff,
that
yes.
knows the products?
Mhm. I'm a certified pool operator. Ryan is a certified pool operator. We can take care of the chemicals and all that other stuff, but we will have maintenance people on staff to make sure that there is no issues with any.
The construction workers on site, are they specialized pool?
The people working on the pool are specialized, they're Mirtha certified pool installers.
That was something I was wondering about.
Yeah. There are 4 companies in the United States that are certified. CEM Aquatics out of Salt Lake City, California Aquatics out of California, Texas Aquatics, and then there's one in Florida as well. Those are the only 4 that can put in Mirtha pools.
So which one are you working with?
CEM Aquatics,
Utah?
yes.
I guess last question from my end, sorry for the garage, but what are your thoughts in terms of concession facilities on the north end of the building? I'm thinking naming rights for potential sponsors too, but revenue streams are always nice.
Yeah, we're open to anything on that north end in the future. For us, it was the project had ballooned significantly from the first moment we sat down, and financially, it just wasn't viable for us to do a concessions thing. At that point, we didn't know we were hosting anything, any large meets. If it becomes as we expect it to become a continuous thing, then I think it's a good idea, and we know it's plausible with the land and the amount of space we have there.
Thank you.
And I know the Chamber Travel Consortium, Sports Consortium, the gentleman that did the presentation. I think you were there for
Yes.
that, right? And they
Mhm.
talked about, basically the facilities that they can use to get, and it did mention that in the best case, they would have a diving well. Is that something that you're running into at all when you're talking to people? Is that?
No,
No,
a lot of the like USA Swimming or age group, and which is the non-college swim meets. That's all. It's USA Diving is a totally separate entity, so those things don't happen at the same time. And I talked to Mr. Rice after that meeting, and for us in Boise, just financially, it just was it's not a sustainable thing. There's not enough demand for it right now. Could be in the future,
Okay.
but it's something to explore. It would have to be a multi-purpose. Just because of a diving well, you just wouldn't get as much use out of that.
Madam Chair, as you'll recall, and Tim and I talked about when we were out there. Those are 2 projects that potentially in the future the district might consider. One being, food service. In my opinion, the food service is most important to go in next, whenever that is. And then when we saw the diving wells down in Salt Lake last year, you know, they're seasonal, just like they would have to be here because they're outdoor. And when I've talked to Nick and Ryan about it, he's already answered. I mean, as things progress, I mean, it would be really helpful if BSU had their swim program still, because they had a diving program and not a lot of places to do it. High school, there's a high school program, but it, you know, chicken or the egg, right? Is there the demand out there to use it seasonally? I mean, high schools couldn't use it during the winter time, but during the summertime was they, and on and on. So
Yeah.
again, they're both projects I think that the board might consider down the road, but
So we're not losing out on anything because we don't have at this time.
No, we're not losing out on anything. We, as I believe I told Pat this in passing, was, you know, we cap out at a certain level of swim meet in competition because of elevation. We do not reach elevation where they would do, USA Swimming has a time adjustment formula. We don't reach that elevation because we're not at 3,000 feet elevation, but we're high enough that it affects kids and affects certain times and certain events. And so we just wouldn't get some of those events because you're not going to send a kid to a swim meet where they're going to swim a little bit slower because of the elevation, but USA Swimming won't adjust that time with a formula.
So we should have built it up closer to Bogus.
Yeah, closer to August would have been interesting, yeah.
All right, any other questions?
Madam Chair, would you like a motion on item A and B?
Yes.
So moved.
I think that we all are under the impression that once we approve those funds, it didn't matter what year it was going to be spent in. So I know that was certainly my thought. So it's really just a logistics issue, admin issue in my mind. So thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That all we needed to do, Anne Marie? That works?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay. All right.
Thank
thanks,
you.
Thank you guys very much.
And it's Josh. I
Josh.
wrote it down, so I remember next
All
time.
right, thank you.
Yeah. All right. State House.
Chairman. Well, it looks to me like we're down to the last 2 weeks. Now, everybody's been talking about adjournment on the 24th. If you look at how the calendar's rolling and the bills are moving, I don't think they can get out by the 24th. It looks more like they're going to extend into the 1st of March. Traditionally, what happens is once the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee appropriates all the money out for the budgets for the year, they call that shutting down the committee. And it's usually 2 weeks after that. Well, they shut the committee down yesterday or today. I think today was their final day. So you add 2 weeks to that, that puts you at the 30th of March, which is close to the 1st of April. We had, I guess everybody intended, we thought there'd be problems in the appropriations committee with a huge infrastructure bill, you know, $700 million for roads, $150 million for water, $400 million increase in education. So you had those higher ed, K through 12, water and transportation. We thought those were huge issues to get through the legislature. We were all ready to fight. We geared our loins. Those things blew through there yesterday like there was nobody's business with huge votes. They killed the Attorney General's budget because the Attorney General, the new Attorney General, Raul Labrador, won't give any of the legislators legal opinions in writing. He'll give them opinions, but he won't give them in writing. And so they believe that's his statutory obligation. So they killed his budget yesterday. It's very interesting. And part of that's to slow, they're trying to slow down the process a little bit because in the bigger scheme, there's 3 bills kind of left out there that the body wants to have passed down to the governor. One is the property tax bill that the House is moving forward. The second one is the governor's launch bill, which is $8,500 to on CT, career technical. And I think the other one, what the Senate is trying to push, they just moved today, is an ESB, Education Savings Account bill, basically a vouchers bill. And that passed off the floor just before lunch. It could have some trouble in the House. It still has to go across. But those are the three kind of what we see are kind of going home bills. And they haven't started wrangling over those yet, but you can see the movement. You know, the House is holding the bill, the Senate's holding the bill. There'll be a big fight here pretty soon. The governor's going to throw a fit about getting his launch bill out. He wants to get it out of the Senate. The Senate says we have to amend it to get it to the House. The House says if you amend it, we're going to kill it. And the property tax is going from the House to the Senate. House really wants the property tax. The Senate says they want to amend it. So again, there's a little tug of war going on with those bills. I'm sure they'll kind of work it out here in the next week, but again, it's going to take some time to kind of sort through all that and get to final passage and get them ready to go home. Closer to GBAD, House Bill 265, the drag queen bill, as we all fondly refer to it as. I learned just before I came over here today, Pro Tem Chuck Winder informed me that that bill is either going to be amended or going to a rewrite. He mentioned that they had received some letters from the performing arts and from Pat. So, those letters, obviously, but they're going to start. I think they're going to rewrite it, maybe come back next year with it. Well, there's only 2 weeks left. There's a lot of work to do. I'm speculating that Chairman Guthrie of the State Affairs Committee is going to roll that bill kind of as long as he can down the process and maybe bring it back next year. But that's the current status of it. It's on hold. Nothing scheduled for the committee. And then House Bill 170, that's the bill that they wanted to limit government from doing donations and sponsorships, that bill. They amended that in the Senate, which basically it will now allow a designated staffer to confirm a sponsorship by a governmental entity or a donation, and they removed the penalty section of the bill.
And Pat, the change they made before that, which was to limit it to state agencies, that's still in there, so it's still limited to just state agencies.
Yeah, it's state agency only. They eliminated all the peripherals that were in it. Yeah, right.
For the Madam Chair, Pat. We were also, there weren't letters written, but we took a stand on that one as well through these guys, because there are a number of events held here that have sponsorships from the 21 or 23 state agencies on a pretty good level. And then, it filters down to, you have several of the, universities. We do a lot of U of I business here, quite frankly. And so it was a concern that, again, a number of events and the CVB and our team both collaborated, and I forwarded on to John lots of information of the groups that meet with us, and so
We moved that information forward.
appreciate it too. So
So it sounds like a lot of the teeth is out of that. The teeth is kind of gone after.
Yeah, I think they're working on it. What I think Chairman Guthrie from Pocatello wants to kill it. And the Pocatello Auditorium District haven't been openly involved. But I think they've been quietly involved. We don't want to be out front on it, but gee, anything you can do to help us on it, we sure appreciate. They see the same problems. Same with Idaho Falls. They haven't been vocal or open on the issue. But I think the information that they're getting from the universities, some of the information we supplied, the Simplot Center for Performing Arts or Simplot Center for Performing Arts is very involved. And I understand that Boise State's the Morrison Center, some of those have been active, so hopefully they'll just die this year and they always try to rewrite things like that. Sometimes they just fade away. You know, we've got a number of social warriors in that body this year that, you know, are you really, have there been a lot of bills out there, you know, on kind of these social type issues and I don't know how that plays next year in election year. Sometimes those things start going away a little.
I just want to confirm what you said back. So the AG's office is currently no longer providing
The AG's office,
opinions.
yeah, there's a big frustration. The AG's office, people run from the legislature down to the AG's office, want to get an opinion, and they're not supplying opinions.
Huh.
They'll say, I'll sit down and talk. The AG says, I'll sit down and talk to you about it. I'm not going to issue written opinion. It sounds like a guy running for governor, but I don't know. But and that's really frustrating. So yesterday on the floor, they killed his budget and it was Republicans and Democrats alike. And they're just frustrated. So they sent him a whole message.
That's actually relevant for us too, in the sense that, you know, our statutes are relatively unique in terms of a lot of things they have in them. And we've got a few court cases on it, but not that many. And so a lot of times it's helpful that we need to get a legislator, somebody to ask, but we can get the legislator to ask the AG's office for their interpretation of our statutes, for example, if we're not certain that certain things are allowed. And so frankly, it's kind of, doesn't have the force of law, but it's a nice backstop if
Right.
we're not completely certain what's the best way to go. So it would be nice if they put that back in play.
Yeah, it is important. It's an important element of, I think, the legislative process. At least you have the lawyer for the state giving you an input into a direction that he sees, you know, whether it's holds in court or not, at least it gives some direction to the legislature.
And is the reason for that just not wanting anything written on record?
That's what I think. That's my speculation. But I don't think he wants anything on record because everything he puts on record, if he ever runs for another office, they can use it against him in one way or another. I think he's just trying to keep his coattails clean on all that stuff.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
couple of bills, the ESG.
Yes. Still moving forward. I don't know where that is. I think, I was talking to the general contractors today. Neil Nelson at ESI, they're the ones that have been instrumental in that bill. They believe, I heard today, I think it's still moving forward. I haven't tracked it, but what I've heard, it's gonna pass.
What about the weapons, the militia?
But
The weapons, the parade, the militia.
that bill's gonna pass. If it hasn't already. It blew through the Senate. We thought the Senate State Affairs Committee is gonna kill that bill. John and I sat in that committee, thought that bill was gonna get killed. They blew it out of there, what, 7-2? I'd have bet $1,000 that bill would pass. And it shot out of that committee. I was shocked. Now it's after it passed the Senate or the House, 50 some to 15 or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you.
The Percy ESG bill that we talked about last time, Jody, it's stuck in Senate State Affairs. The only Percy bill that looks like it may get through is the public government procurement one. It's on the third reading.
That's
191.
Yeah, 191.
That's the Neil, no, that's the Neil,
Now, 191,
that's the Nelson.
190, 189 are both stuck in Senate State Affairs.
Does that one affect us?
What about the liquor license?
It flew through that House State Affairs this morning. Headed to the floor.
It still has to go to the House.
Does that one look like it might make it this time?
Good question.
There's a lot of people.
It's gone further than I thought it would.
Yeah.
I thought, that bill reads that if you have a liquor license, you get to sell it once, but who wants to buy it? Because then you're stuck with it, right? I mean, that's how we read it, but it's moving.
One license yesterday that's on the market. It's been on for 5 days. I told the listing broker about it, making it through yesterday, and he dropped it $15,000 in the next 4 hours.
Really?
Yeah. So, them not thinking that they're gonna lose value is insane.
Oh.
And it doesn't do
that bill-
anything with the
that bill
quota
passes
system.
and those things will be
They're
worth
gonna have
nothing.
zero.
It'll be worth nothing.
Yeah, zero.
Good thing I just applied for our renewal a couple days ago.
Well, it doesn't impact us because
We have ours.
We have ours.
Yeah.
But and we're not, I'm assuming you're not really planning to sell yours, Pat, so.
Right.
I'm looking at you guys, I hope we don't.
I have a clarifying question, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
about the bill that's gonna limit or prevent state sponsorship. Is the CVB state grant exposed?
Yes, because those would come from. Yeah, because those come from Commerce, which is one of the state agencies, and CVB is technically not a government entity. Yeah, depending on, I don't know where they ended up. I don't know where they ended up changing the definitions, but.
So
likely-
pending definition then.
Yeah, so likely it'll be one that would have to get blessed by whoever the ombudsman for, blessing donations or something.
Yeah, it just any government staffers designee, so I don't. know what that means. That
And in
means
your
basically
opinion,
anybody
what's the
who-
likelihood of that passing, just in your opinion as of now? It's gonna pass.
John, Bill,
Sooner they get out, the better off we are.
yeah. It's gonna there's gonna be some dust ups over here. We're getting close. I figure next week things will blow up and they've gotta go down.
Madam Chair, Phil, how many vetoes?
None yet. None yet, but that ESA bill they passed out in the Senate today, that education savings account bill, I think it's got a check mark on it. He said he had trouble with the property tax bill, but I don't know if he's doing that just to mess around with Boyle, trying to get his launch bill. So they're rattling sabers, but I think the ESA bill does have a real chance to be. He doesn't like those voucher bills. He said it corrupts the public education system too much, and he likes our public education system. He's gonna protect it. But you're gonna see some vetoes. I think the military, marching with guns bill, I don't know where he'll do with that. That'll be one we'll be looking at. The COVID bill.
Any other brought?
The one, what's her name brought, Tammy Nichols.
Is that the mRNA?
What's that?
Is it the mRNA?
Yeah,
Not veto.
I don't know what, there's a lot of those types of bills are kind of moving. I didn't think they'd move, but they're moving this year, and I'm surprised, but I'll see how he reacts to those bills. They're holding a lot of them on the calendar now too. I don't know if they'll die on the third reading calendars, or they're planning on moving them to sometimes leadership will hold those bills to the end of the session and pass them the last day and send them down to the governor. They can adjourn, the governor can veto them. They're not here to come back, not here to override vetoes.
Do you think they're actually gonna sign a die? Or do you think they're gonna hang on like they did?
I think they're gonna sign and die, because now constitutionally, they can come back whenever they want. Much to our chagrin.
Yeah, good point.
Well, keep us up to date on those two specifically, 265 and 170, right? Thanks,
Thank you.
good luck. Okay, Anne Marie, on an update? And
Kind of
Jody?
already.
It's 90% done,
Okay.
working on the MDAA. Audit covers were delivered to the auditor today. No adjustments, no deficiencies, no.
Jody, anything additional?
No, it's really refreshing. Ide Bailey's doing a nice job. It's not nearly the issue that's been last year.
Thanks.
They were in and out in a week.
Wow.
Well, we opened our systems up to them so they can look at whatever transactions they want. when they do their samples, they can just go right in, and we have a automated accounts payable system, which is online, which Kristen knows, but it has an electronic approval process, and all of our documents are in there. So if they want to pull a sample, they can go right in. On the receivable side, they can see the contracts, they can see the deposits, they can follow them through to the bank statements. I mean, it's just doing it the way we're doing it remotely has just been a huge success.
Good news. Great. Any other questions on the audit? Nope. All right. Seeing no other business before the board, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.